What's up guys, and welcome to my first cosplay story time of 2018. I'm really excited to be back at it and back telling you guys cosplay stories. This is actually a very highly requested story. A little while ago I put a poll out asking out of 3 stories that I wanted to tell which you wanted to see first, and the overwhelming response said to tell this story. So today I'm going to be telling you guys the story of how some friends and I pretty much crashed the set of Descendants while we were in cosplay, and no, none of that is clickbait, none of that is exaggerated, none of that is a lie. That's basically what happened, so let's get right on into it. So this happened the summer of 2014. This was about a year before Descendants was actually released, and it took place at a con called Northwest Fan Fest, which unfortunately doesn't happen anymore, but at the time it was a large con that happened in Vancouver during the summer, and this particular year it was being held at UBC, which is this massive university campus in Vancouver. It's pretty much like its own town. It's massive. There's a really vast array of scenery, so it's a really great place to hold a convention since there's so many available venues and photo shoot locations, but as well as being great for conventions, it's also great for filming. What you also need to know about Vancouver in general is that it is a really big hotspot for filming. Basically, Vancouver and its surrounding province, the government tries to make it as attractive as possible for potential movie companies to shoot there. They give them like tax credits and a whole bunch of other perks to shoot there, and on top of that, Vancouver is a massive city and can pretty much pass for any large US city. So a lot of big productions will shoot there, including Supernatural, CW's The Flash. If you've been to Vancouver and then watched many popular movies, chances are you can probably recognize a lot of places. Like one of my favorite movies, which is Josie and the Pussycats, the live action one from like 2000. Don't judge me. That was also filmed in Vancouver. So essentially, Vancouver is the choice of a lot of movie studios to shoot their shows and movies, including Disney. So for that particular year of Northwest Fan Fest, my friends and I decided to actually rent one of the dorms that they have there so that we could actually stay on campus, and it would be a lot more convenient than having to make the long commute there and back. So we show up there on the Thursday to get our tickets, check into our room, etc. And instantly we notice all of this lighting equipment. There are a whole bunch of like steel rigs everywhere, lighting equipment just on the grass, a bunch of crew members just walking around. So instantly we can figure out that they are shooting something on the campus, but of course we have no idea what. So as the weekend goes on, I think kind of through the grapevine, we heard that it was a Disney movie, but again, we didn't know which movie it was, and even if somebody had told us that it was Descendants, this was before it had even been released, so we wouldn't have really known what that meant. But basically, Friday, nothing was too out of the ordinary. I think at that point they were still setting up all their lighting equipment, so like all their rigs and stuff were all over the grass. So it's not until Saturday night that things kind of start to come together. They actually start putting their set pieces together throughout the campus. And the first official set pieces that we actually stumbled across were a row of lockers. I was on the way with some friends to go and take some photos of their cosplays. So we're walking to this photo shoot location and we come across these picnic tables and these lockers. And I do actually have video footage of that to show you guys, so I will put that in right here.
So these aren't usually here, they were not here yesterday, and there's all of these lighting rigs being set up around here, which means that they're filming. But yes, isn't that cool? It's a movie set!
So if you've seen Descendants, you probably recognize that particular location. They were just sitting there, like the lockers, the picnic tables, they were just there. I know that during the weekend, some cosplayers did actually decide to shoot in front of those lockers, and everybody was totally respectful. Nobody vandalized them or anything. They just used them for like backdrops in their photos. That's kind of cool being able to say that like you used part of the Descendants set for backdrops in your photos. But again, like they were just sitting there. Nobody was guarding them. So whenever the crew wasn't actually using them, they just left them there and let people take photos. That was really neat. The fact that like an actual like part of the Descendants set was just kind of there in the open at this convention. But the crazy part of the story doesn't actually happen until Sunday afternoon, so the next day after we'd seen those set pieces. So this particular day, I was cosplaying Armin from Attack on Titan, and my friend Aaron was cosplaying Aaron. And during that day, we met my friend Maru, who was cosplaying Mikasa, and so we all decided to just hang out for the rest of the day and basically like goof around the convention and take photos together. So we wanted to get photos, of course, as a group, and my friend Vic, who is an amazing photographer, was at that convention, and we don't get to see each other super often, so it's always fun to hang out. So I texted him and said like, hey, my friends and I were cosplaying Attack on Titan. Do you want to meet up and do a photo shoot together? And he was like, heck yeah, where do you want to meet? So at UBC, probably one of the most iconic photo shoot locations for cosplayers who go to cons there is this library. It's this beautiful kind of like old brick library. It's just a really versatile and beautiful and like iconic location. So I suggested that we shoot there since it's easy to find and would work really well with our cosplays. So Vic tells us to just go there, wait for him, and then he would eventually be on his way and then we could shoot there. So we make our way over, and that is when we unintentionally make our way onto the set of Descendants. They were essentially just getting ready to shoot. They weren't shooting at that particular moment, but they were just setting up to start shooting for the day at that particular location. So there was like lighting rigs, there were cameras, there were all the crew members, there were extras that were waiting around. I don't think there were any of the like actual main actors there at that point. And before anybody asks, we didn't meet any of the main cast or anything. And like even if we had, we probably wouldn't have known who they were because I think Descendants was like a big break for most people. Pretty much we're in Attack on Titan cosplay standing around this whole production. We're looking around trying to figure out like what we should do next, because obviously we have to stay in that location or at least around that location in order to still be able to meet up with Vic, but we can't shoot in front of the library because they're going to be shooting right in front of the library. They had basically decked the library out to look like one of the entrances to the actual school in Descendants. So we had to figure out what we were going to do, and we're just like kind of like really confused in the moment. We're like, what's going on? We weren't actually like where they were going to shoot. They were shooting right in front of the library. So we were like down the steps, like way behind there. All the crew members and like extras are looking at us super weird, obviously, because like we're in full cosplay. So this production assistant comes up to us, and production assistants, their main role, of course, is to assist in the production, but mainly what they do is pretty much ensure that everybody is where they need to be. So if somebody like us accidentally like comes across the movie set, they'll come up to you and like tell you kind of where you can go. So that's what this guy told us. And he was about our age, and he was incredibly nice. One thing I have to say is that Disney movie sets, like the Disney Channel movie sets, everybody is incredibly nice. They understood they were shooting during a convention, so like this kind of thing was going to happen. So everybody who we interacted with was really nice to us. So this production assistant comes up to us and he basically says like, oh, we're actually going to start shooting, so like you guys can't be here, but if you want to hang around the movie set, I can tell you like where you can go. So we explained that we're supposed to be meeting a friend, and so we would prefer to stay like in the movie set. So he's like, okay, that's totally fine. I'll show you where you can go because we're about to start shooting. So across from where the library is, there's this clock tower. So basically what he did is he had us stand around kind of the corner of the clock tower so that there was no chance of like the cameras accidentally seeing us or us accidentally being heard. On a movie set, there's this notion of kind of like perimeters. So when they're about to shoot, they have production assistants at like each different part of the perimeter, and they'll give out a signal to each of them. They all have like a little walkie-talkie thing, and they will tell each of them that they're about to film. Like they'll give a signal that they're about to film so that the production assistants can basically tell everybody in that area quiet on the set and to basically be where you need to be so that you don't get seen by the cameras by accident. And then they'll film, everybody stays quiet, and then once they cut, they give out another signal so that everybody knows that they've cut, and then you can like talk and move around, and then like it kind of just goes back and forth. So that's really cool. They let us stay on the movie set, and they basically just told us that we had to stay in a particular area while they were shooting and just stay super quiet. One really interesting thing is that Aaron actually asked this guy what the movie was about. He was allowed to tell us, obviously, that it was a Disney movie, but when you're working on a movie set, of course, you have your NDA, your non-disclosure agreement, so you're not allowed to actually tell people what the movie is like really about. You're not allowed to give them any details, and you're not allowed to take photos on set and stuff. And that's another thing that they told us. They just told us like, as long as you stay quiet, you stay like out of range of the camera, and you don't take any photos or videos of the set while they're filming and upload them to social media, like as long as you don't do that, you're welcome to stay. So yeah, so she asks him and he's like, well, I can't really tell you, but he basically gave her a very vague synopsis, which like after seeing Descendants and knowing what it's actually about, it was interesting to compare the two. So he told us that like the movie was about a group of kids who were raised on an isolated island and are now having to learn how to like act in normal society. They're now being reintegrated into like normal society. And I remember at the time thinking that sounded like really kind of dystopian for a Disney movie. It sounded more kind of like a Hunger Games thing. And of course it clashed a lot with like the really bright, cheery look of like all the extras and all the set pieces that we were seeing in front of us, right? So actually seeing Descendants, like his synopsis was absolutely not wrong, but what I thought it was about was a lot different from what it actually ended up being about. Eventually, he tells us that they're taking a break from shooting, so we're allowed to like walk around, and then once they start shooting again, we're just gonna have to come back to the clock tower. So we're like, cool. We come around the clock tower, and it's perfect timing because we see my friend Vic walking towards the set, and he's like, what's going on? We're like, they're shooting a Disney movie. I guess we can't really do an Attack on Titan cosplay shoot here. So we're talking to Vic and we're trying to figure out what alternate location we can use, and he says that he knows about this nice little kind of like forest clearing area that's just around the corner from where we currently are. So we agreed to go shoot there, but on our way, we pass by some of the extras who are on break while they're, you know, taking a break from filming. If you've seen Descendants, you probably know kind of what they're wearing, but on this particular scene, they were wearing like very clean white pants and white skirts, and then these very colorful pastel polo shirts. Each of them had like different colors. The boys had normal looking hairstyles, but like the girls had these very over the top, crazy looking buns, kind of buns on the side. A few of them had them kind of like normally in the middle, but like most of them had these like crazy side buns. So we're walking past this group of extras, and this one guy who's I think in his late to mid 20s at the time sees us, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Survey Corps, heck yeah!" And like we were super excited that he recognized us. So he was really nice. But then while we're walking off the set, we pass by this other extra, and she's about the same age as us. And as soon as she sees us, she kind of like looks us up and down and gives us the most disgusted look. And I remember thinking like, bro, look at what you're wearing versus what we're wearing. Like, you're not one to judge. But anyway, I thought that was funny. So we make our way over to this other photo shoot location. We start shooting and we take all these like angsty Attack on Titan photos, and it works really well. However, we are just around the corner from the movie set. So they got off their break and they started filming this musical number. And from what I could see in the actual movie, it didn't actually make it into the final cut, unfortunately, but I remember it was this very corny song of like one of the characters proclaiming his love and basically I think proposing to one of the other characters. I think it was sung by the prince, and he was singing it to the girl who he was originally supposed to end up with, not Mal, but like the original girlfriend of his. Basically, it's this super, super cheesy song that's being blasted while we're taking our angsty Attack on Titan photos. And one thing about me is that I cannot handle super corny music like that. Like I get really bad secondhand embarrassment, and I get like super awkward and like cringy. I can't handle it very well, but my friends are like having a ball with it. So like every time we'd be in the middle of taking some like really like heart-wrenching Attack on Titan photos, and then this music would keep starting up, and then my friends would just like start dancing like really cheesily, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I hate this. But like eventually there was one point when like they just grabbed my hands and we all started dancing in a circle. I have a picture of that. It was really funny. It was just a really great juxtaposition between like heart-wrenching, intense, sad Attack on Titan photos and corny Disney musicals. So it was pretty cool to think back on it. And I know that like a lot of people in the community who had been at the convention, obviously they have stories as well. One of my friends actually has a story about how she was walking somewhere during the convention in her cosplay, and one of their banners that they were setting up fell on her. And so the crew actually paid for her lunch that day to apologize for it. So yeah, that is the time that we accidentally, unknowingly, unintentionally ended up crashing the set of Descendants while we were in our Attack on Titan cosplays. That would have been one heck of a crossover, can I just say? Attack on Titan and Descendants would have been interesting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have similar experiences, I feel like this hasn't happened to a lot of people, but like if it's happened to you, I'd love to know about it. Please be sure to let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much, as usual, for hanging out with me for my first ever Cosplay Storytime of 2018. Again, I'm really excited to tell more stories this year. It's going to be good. Again, really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys all next time. But until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye.